Imagine you're the captain of the most powerful warship ever built, the USS Gerald R. a $13.3 billion floating fortress. Suddenly, 3 Russian submarines surfaced around you, their hulls gleaming in the Arctic dawn. A destroyer charges at your fleet, and fighter jets scream overhead, armed with missiles that could sink your ship in seconds. What do? Fire first and risk war, or hold your ground and trust your crew? This is the decision that faced the U.S. Navy on July 19, 2025, in the icy Barents Sea. This wasn't just a military standoff, it was a test of nerves in waters that carry 20% of global trade, where oil tankers and cargo ships sail daily. A single misstep could have sparked a conflict that disrupted gas prices, food supplies, and the global economy, things that hit your wallet, your grocery store, your life. Picture the scene. 167 nautical miles north of Norway, waves crash against the hull of the USS Thomas Hudner, a guided missile destroyer slicing through 14-foot swells. The Arctic air is so cold it stings your face, and the low gray clouds feel close enough to touch. At 7:14 a.m., the crew is sipping coffee, running drills, when the radar screams, a Russian destroyer is charging at 28.4 knots, closing fast. On that morning, the USS Gerald R. carrier strike group was on a freedom of navigation patrol, a routine mission to ensure open seas. But nothing about what followed was routine. The Ford, a 100,000-ton behemoth, carried 75 aircraft, 4 destroyers, and 2 nuclear submarines, all linked by a digital nervous system called Link 16. This network tracks every ping, every radar sweep, every whisper in the electromagnetic spectrum across a 300-mile radius. The Russians thought they were sneaking up. They didn't know they were already in a trap. What happens when a Russian task force submarines, destroyers, and Mach 3 armed jets locks onto the world's most expensive warship? Would Moscow dare to fire, or was this a bluff to flex power in the Arctic? The Russian destroyer, Admiral Levchenko, wasn't just patrolling, it was sprinting, hitting 28.4 knots in under a minute, aimed like an arrow at the USS Thomas Hudner. Think of a time you've been cut off in traffic, heart racing, wondering if the other driver meant it. Now imagine that, but with warships, jets, and the fate of nations on the line. The U.S. crew knew this wasn't a game, but they also knew their training made them untouchable. The Ford strike group wasn't just a fleet, it was a floating city of 5,000 sailors, engineers, and pilots, each a cog in a machine built to outthink and outfight any adversary. The Barents Sea is no tropical paradise. It's a frozen hell where waves slam like fists and ice forms on deck railings. At 7:21 a.m., the USS Thomas Hudner's sonar picks up a new contact, a Russian Kilo-class submarine, 28,000 yards away, crawling at 3 knots. Its diesel-electric engines hum loud enough to wake a sleeping whale 12 decibels above the ocean's background noise. Above, 4 Russian Su-30 fighters launch from Murmansk, armed with missiles that could punch through steel like paper. The Russian destroyer's radar locks onto the Ford, a signal as bold as a pointed gun. The U.S. response.com calculated. The Ford's Combat Direction Center hums with activity screens glowing, headsets buzzing, officers issuing orders with the precision of a symphony. No panic, just focus. The Russians are loud, chaotic, trying to intimidate. The Americans are silent, watching, waiting. If you were in the Ford's command chair, would you launch missiles at the Russian jets buzzing your ships? Or would you trust your tech and training to de-escalate without bloodshed? At 7:34 a.m., the order comes. Launch the Airwing. The deck of the Ford erupts steam, catapults hurl FA-180 Super Hornets into the sky every 47 seconds, each loaded with missiles that could erase a target 100 miles away. These aren't superheroes. They're people like you, sons, daughters, parents, who trained for years to protect the seas. The pilot climbing into the cockpit. She's a 28-year-old from Ohio who loves pizza and misses her dog. The sonar tech. A dad from Texas who coached Little League before deploying. Their job is to keep the world's trade routes open, so your Amazon packages and gas pumps don't run dry. Picture the roar of jet engines shaking your chest as FA-18s scream off the Ford's deck. The Arctic sky, usually a gray void, is now a chessboard. An E-2D Hawkeye circles at 25,000 feet. Its radar painting 6 million cubic miles of air, tracking every Russian move. 2 EA-18G Growlers flip on their jamming pods, and Russian radar screens turn to static for us. Jets morph into 20, then vanish like ghosts. The Russian Su-30s, burning fuel at full throttle, can't keep up. Their Soviet-era radars sweep blindly, while U.S. pilots see everything, linked by a digital web that makes them unstoppable. The Russians are losing control, jets low on fuel, radars jammed, a submarine exposed. Will they double down and risk war, or back off and lose face? At 7:41 a.m., a Russian Su-30 makes a desperate move, diving at a U.S. Super Hornet in a high-speed thump to intimidate. The American pilot, trained at Top Gun, doesn't blink. He flips inverted, pulls a 6-5G turn, and locks onto the Russian in 2.7 seconds. The Sidewinder missile is ready, but the US holds fire. Well, ever had to stay calm when someone's pushing your buttons? That's what the US Navy did. Firing first could have sparked a global crisis, headlines screaming World War III. Instead, they leaned on discipline, trusting their tech and training to send a message without a shot. It's the kind of cool-headedness you'd want from your doctor, your pilot, or your president. Under the waves, the Russian Kilo-class sub raises its snorkel to recharge batteries, a fatal error. The USS Thomas Hudner's sonar pins it down to within 14 meters. A Virginia-class submarine, silent for days, lurks just 5.8 nautical miles away, tracking the Kilo like a shark. If this were war, a single torpedo would end it in seconds. The Russian crew, sweating in their cramped sub, has no idea they're already in the crosshairs. What happens when a Russian destroyer locks its fire control radar on the USS Gerald R? At 7:49 a.m., the Admiral Levchenko does just that, its beam tightening like a sniper scope. Is this the moment that tips the scales to war? The Ford's alarms blare, but the crew doesn't flinch. Every ship in the strike group locks onto the Russians' missiles, ready firing solutions calculated. Will Russia pull the trigger? This standoff isn't just about ships and jets. It's about the oil that heats your home, the goods that fill your stores, the stability that keeps your life normal. The Arctic is a highway for global trade, and the US Navy's job is to keep it open. One wrong move here, and you'd feel it at the pump, in your grocery bill, in the news. At 2:32 p.m., the Ford launches 48 jets in under 4 minutes, a mechanized storm that darkens the Arctic sky. Super Hornets, Growlers, and Hawkeyes move as one, linked by a digital network that turns them into a single, unstoppable force. The Russian Su-30s, low on fuel, struggle to keep up. Their radars flicker, overwhelmed by US jamming. One pilot radios a fuel emergency, then another. By 3:06 p.m., 5 Russian jets peel off, limping back to base. Why did Moscow call it quits? At 4:23 p.m., a message crackles through Russia's Baltic Sea Fleet Channel. Joint Arctic Readiness Exercise complete. A lie. They came to provoke, to intimidate, but left humiliated. Did the Kremlin realize they'd overplayed their hand? Or did the sight of 48 US jets and a surfaced submarine break their nerve? Think of the Russian sailors, cold and exhausted, realizing their tech couldn't match the US Navy's or the American crew. Hearts pounding, but hands steady, knowing they held the line without firing a shot. These are people, not just uniforms, balancing the weight of war and peace in a single moment. At 2:41 p.m., the USS New Hampshire, a Virginia-class submarine, breaches the surface 6.2 nautical miles from the Admiral Levchenko. Its black hull cuts through the waves, a silent predator that had tracked the Russian fleet for 9 days. Russian lookouts scramble, sonar buoys, useless. The message is clear. You never saw us coming. No missiles flew, no ships sank, yet the US Navy won. How do you win a battle without firing a shot? The Ford strike group's dominance, jets in the sky, subs in the deep, data linking it, all forced Russia to back down. Was this the ultimate power move, or a warning of what's to come? This isn't just a military story. It's about the freedom to ship goods across the globe, the security that keeps your life stable. The US Navy's presence ensures that no nation can bully its way into controlling vital waters. It's why your gas prices don't skyrocket overnight, why your groceries stay affordable. American jets perform close air drills, twisting through the sky in 9G turns that make the air scream. Russian pilots, fuel tanks near empty, can't match the display. Their radars, jammed into uselessness, leave them blind. The Ford's deck hums with activity, 5,000 crew members working as one to project power. The Russians, outmatched, retreat in silence. Moscow's gamble failed, but what will they do next? Will they rethink their Arctic strategy, or double down with new tech, new tactics? The US Navy proved it could dominate without firing, but will Russia test them again, hoping for a different outcome? This is about more than warships. It's about standing firm under pressure, whether it's a bully at work or a nation on the global stage. The US Navy showed that strength isn't just firepower, it's discipline, preparation, and the courage to hold back when the world's watching. By 4:23 p.m., the Barents Sea is quiet again. Russian ships steam away, jets vanish over the horizon, and the Kilo-class subdives deep, hoping to disappear. The Ford strike group sails on, waves crashing against its hull, a symbol of unyielding resolve. No headlines scream of this moment, but for those who understand naval warfare, it's a victory etched in steel and sky. The July 19, 2025 confrontation in the Barents Sea wasn't just a standoff, it was a masterclass in modern naval power. The US Navy didn't need to fire a shot to win. With cutting-edge tech, unmatched training, and iron discipline, they turned a Russian provocation into a lesson. Deterrence isn't declared, it's demonstrated. For the sailors aboard the Ford, the Hudner, and the New Hampshire, this was another day at work. For the world, it was a reminder that freedom of the seasoned, the stability it brings rests on their shoulders. The Arctic may be cold, but the U.S. Navy's resolve burns hotter than ever.